I missed this the other day.
On New York, you're the most prominent Republican in the country from the city. What do you want to...
Anywhere else? I don't want to be a wise guy. Perhaps I can. Maybe Marco.
But how do you want Republican voters in the city to vote in the upcoming mayoral election? Should they vote for Eric Adams? Should they vote for Sliwa? Should they pick someone else?
Look, number one, you have a communist running, and you shouldn't vote for him. He's a disaster. He's leading. He's got the Democrat nomination because that shows you where the Democrats have gone. He actually wants to take over the grocery stores of John Catsimatidis, who's a great guy, a rich guy, grocer, does a good job, wants to take over. He actually called me the other day. He's concerned his stores are going to be taken from him, and they won't be run like John runs them. Believe me, he runs a good operation. But he actually said he wants to run his own grocery stores. No, this is a man who's not very capable, in my opinion, other than he's got a good line of bullshit, and he's convinced them to go with him. Now, as you know, Cuomo, who does have capability, is running, but he got knocked out, and now they're running as, you have Eric Adams, the current mayor, you have Cuomo, and you have Curtis Sliwa. And Curtis runs every 4 years. He seems to be a fixture on the running scale. But you know, it's I'm not getting involved. But I can tell you this: I used to say we will not ever be a socialist country, right? Well, I'll say it again: we're not going to have. If a communist gets elected to run New York, it can never be the same. But we have tremendous power at the White House to run places when we have to. We could run D.C. I mean, we're looking at D.C. We don't want crime in D.C. We want the city to run well. Susie Wiles is working very closely with the mayor, and they're doing all right. I mean, in the sense that we would run it so good, it would be run so proper. We'd get the best person to run it. The crime would be down to a minimal, would be much less. And you know, we're thinking about doing it. To be honest with you, we want a capital that's run flawlessly, and it wouldn't be hard for us to do it. And we've had a good relationship with the mayor, and we're testing it to see if it works. But New York City will run properly. We're going to bring New York back. I love New York. You know, I loved New York for a long time. Then we had a bunch of crooked people in there. You have an attorney general who's a total stone cold crook, New York State, Letitia James, a total crook. All they do is want to go after political opponents. They do what's ever expeditious for them. She's the one that took out Cuomo because she wanted to run for governor, and then she ended up getting 1% of the vote. She polled at 1%. She dropped out, went back to attorney general. You have a lot of crooked things going on in New York. We're going to straighten out New York. Maybe we're going to have to straighten it out from Washington. But when I see a communist who has actually gotten a Democrat, pretty much gotten a Democrat nomination, they also went to that new form of voting, which is a beauty. You go in there in third place.
I'm sorry I'm not pausing and like interjecting my own thoughts. It's just that he's really off in this one. So he doesn't really make like a coherent point you can stop and respond to. It's more like I'm just giving him he's vomiting up the words, and then I'll sort it all out.
Come out and first, that's that form of voting that they have gone to. You know what I'm talking about. It's not too good. We're going to do something for New York. I can't tell you what yet, but we're going to make New York great again. Also, we're going to make it great again with.
Remember yesterday when we went over the military operation? What was it? Operation Valkyrie? What was it? No, Operation Excalibur in MacArthur Park in Los Angeles, where they somehow bungled like running a couple dozen soldiers up and down the park a few times. Like they f***ed that up somehow. Can you imagine what New York City, the mega complicated capital of the world, would look like if it was being run remotely by DC? It would look like Snake Plissken shit. It would fall apart instantly. Oh my god. It would look like Gaza. Rooftops are gonna be speaking Puerto Rican. That's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Mamdani is obviously going to campaign like mad. off of this. The sitting president effectively threatening to seize the city if he wins the election. There's no way that him and his team don't run off of this. Honestly, it's a strategic. I want to say it's like a strategic fuck up from Trump, but that's kind of meaningless because he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not like trying to do anything. He's just talking, you know. So I'd say it's more like a gift to the other side because Republicans already are going to dislike Mamdani, by and large, obviously, for a wide variety of reasons. So all this really does is give polarization fuel to the other side, you know? As before, the real question is just how much are Democrats going to let this happen? Because that's the big question, right? The Democrats could still sink Mamdani if they wanted to. And I think that for the most part, what we've seen in response to Mamdani's victory is that the Democrats do not have, they do not have a competent, well-organized plan to deal with Mamdani. In fact, there are a lot of people in the Democratic Party who are like, shouldn't we go along with this guy? Thank God that as much as the world is full of conspiracy-brained people are almost always wrong, man. Because the narrative is always that the world is run by like a small cabal of well-organized people with evil intentions. In reality, it's run by a medium-sized cabal of stupid people who are not well-organized and have evil intentions. You're right on half the points. They can't coordinate for shit, okay? They're very, very bad at it. So there might be people within the Democratic Party who are like any of their AIPAC contacts, anyone like Schumer, plenty of people within the Democratic Party who would literally like sacrifice the country before giving New York City to Mamdani. But there are probably far more people in the Democratic Party who are somewhere on the spectrum between likes Mamdani but doesn't really get what's going on and has reservations about Mamdani because of internal stuff that they've heard but understands on some level that like he seems to be the future of the Democratic Party, but they're also kind of like nervous about going against the donors. I think most Democrats are on that spectrum. Also, Adams said that Cuomo is pathetic for asking him to step aside in the general after losing. This could be very useful. Nice. Thank God. Dude, let Cuomo and Adams do the fighting, okay? Please, God. What about Schumer types? I just said Schumer is evil. He's literally said what his job is, okay? Schumer is... I think it's the Schumer-Jeffries divide, man. Schumer is evil. I'm 90% sure the only reason that Schumer flipped and pushed Democrats to support the Republican budgetary framework was so that like continued scheduled payments to Israel could go through. I don't like, yeah, no. Schumer is evil. Jeffries is useless. Also evil, but you know, useless. Yeah. Was Schumer any good at all? Nope. His entire career, he's been evil. He has always been an AIPAC bot corporate Democrat who has worked tirelessly to make the country worse and keep the Democrats corporate. For decades and decades, he has only ever done this. It's great. Can only ever fail upwards in politics. Coconut Gang, do you have a non-Facebook link for this? You see Jim Clyburn fall in line and say he supports Mamdani? How do I...
Democratic nominee for mayor of New York?
Absolutely, I do. I support Democratic nominees. The fact of the matter is, my relationship with Cuomo goes back to...
See how for both of these gentlemen, the lapel of their suits, it lays flat against the breast of the jacket? This is what I mean about constructing 3D shapes, you know? Traditionally in high-quality men's tailoring, there's like a beautiful lapel roll that gives this depth and weight to the fabric. In this case, they both lay flat.
When he was Secretary of HUD, and so when I was asked to be supportive, I returned the favor.
Just to be clear, you support Mamdani's position as the Democratic primary winner. Is that an endorsement? Are you endorsing him as mayor of New York City?
I support the Democratic nominee. He is the nominee. I've never met him, never even heard of him until he was running.
Okay.
And I never could understand why people think that you toss long-standing relationships aside. No, you try to add to those.
At this point, do you support Mamdani's candidacy as the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York?
Absolutely, I do. I support Democratic.
Okay, well, it's hard to tell what he thinks he's saying because he's 500 years old, but, you know, bend the knee. All right, Black New Yorkers. Sorry. You know, no, I'm not sorry. I wouldn't say sorry if white New Yorkers voted like 80-20 for Cuomo or whatever. I'd be like, white voters, you need to get your shit together. Vote blue no matter who, motherfucker. Anyway, I do love to see some knee bending. I think that you guys, man, you literally can't make jokes with black people on screen. You people are crazy. You've no idea like what the lines are. As a general rule, unless you've been invited to the cookout, lay off the jokes. You have no idea what the lines are, okay? This motherfucker in chat posting, oh, I like his hair. Jesus Christ. You make me look bad. Unlike me, black people don't think you're cool. Vosh trying to think of his audience's biggest insecurity. Unless you're white, you don't understand, but like black people basically produce all American culture and are the trendsetters. Like all culture is produced by queer black men and women, which then gets co-opted by black people at large, which then gets co-opted by gay white people, which then gets co-opted by white women, which then gets used by everybody. So yeah, it's a food chain, but we know who the producers are. So for hip and happening white people, the approval of black people means everything, you know? It's a strange system. It's a strange system. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, I really do think that like, you know, what is explained by malice is often better explained by incompetence. Like that line, you know, don't assume people are being deliberately evil when it's more likely they're just stupid. Usually that's true. Not always true though, right? We're talking about people who are very, very well paid. They're in the upper levels of government. They are like surrounded day in, day out with other people trying to influence them, other people with positions of power. You know, that assumption of incompetence doesn't work as well when you're talking about the people who run the country. That being said, I do think that within the Democratic Party, there is a tendency towards non-malicious incompetence, just as a consequence of liberals having no idea what to do. Also, that feedback loop with consultants, you know? I really do think there are a lot of Democratic politicians who just don't interact with regular people at all. Like, at all. Day in, day out for decades of their lives. They interact with lobbyists and consultants and other politicians and staffers whose job it is to serve them and get along with them and agree with them, you know. And over time, they just have no idea what's going on. Like, there are probably a lot of Democrats who genuinely think that Mamdani is like a flash-in-the-pan internet trend who's hip with young people because he promises impossible things. Cuomo lost because he was a uniquely bad candidate, which might be true. In reality, what we need to get the ship steering right again is like a bipartisan consensus with the sane members of the Republican Party. Now, I think that's bullshit, but there are probably some Democrats who believe that because that's the playbook that would have worked up until like 10 years ago. Like, wouldn't you expect people to assume that's the playbook still when it's been the playbook for their entire lives up until the last 10? If you got into politics in your 30s and you're now 75, the vast majority of your life, that playbook worked up until basically 2016. And only recently has there been a change. I'm not saying these people don't suck, they do, and I'm not saying they're not evil, they often are. I'm just saying that sometimes their incompetence isn't deliberate, and I think that for those people, hello, Clyburn, I think that for those people, like, it's possible they might not be as militant against Mamdani, which leaves the real threat not being people like Clyburn. The real threat are people like Schumer, who might be deliberately malicious and willing to sink Mamdani at the cost of the party and rally as many people as possible to that cause, you know? It's not, does Clyburn personally want to sink Mamdani? Nah, clearly not. It's, would he be susceptible to an argument from somebody who does want that? I don't know. But right now, things are looking good for Mamdani. Trump posturing against him gives him fuel for campaigning. Adams and Cuomo are apparently fighting, so that's good. This sticking to the old playbook is why I think AOC is still with Biden. It doesn't work with AOC because she got into politics after the playbook was thrown out. Like she was in her dad's balls back when that playbook was operational. You know, the whole time she's been in governance, it hasn't really worked. What about Bernie? Bernie's never played by the playbook, right? Bernie's entire life, he's been a maverick because he's built different. He's been the same for decades, but he's never like, he's not even a Democrat. I mean, he hasn't been a part of these like internal Democratic operations. Should Mamdani take the bait and hit back at Trump? He shouldn't hit back at Trump. That's dumb. There's no point to that. What he should do is say, truthfully, this is why we need a mayor who's not afraid to stand up to Trump. He's threatening to take over the city if the people of New York City express their democratic intent by voting me in. It should show you how dangerous he is and how badly we need someone who's willing to stand up. You know, something like that. There's no point in attacking Trump over it. He's not running for federal office, you know. Jeffrey's team are calling the progressives that might primary him in 2026 team gentrification. Yep. It's always the same Hillary Clinton id poll bullshit. But we'll talk about that in a second, okay?
We're going to talk about the race for New York City mayor. Democratic mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani picked up a key endorsement from the United Federation of Teachers, one of the largest unions in the city.
Yeah, that's a big one. And also, meanwhile, President Trump is taking aim at Mamdani, suggesting that he...
Double-breasted navy suit with a goddamn orange T-shirt underneath. God help me.
Would take over the city, not my words, his, if Mamdani wins.
Eyewitness News reporter Jaysha Patel is live in Lower Manhattan with more for us. Jaysha.
Shirlene, Michelle, Sam, good morning. Well, less than an hour ago, Mamdani was joined by the UFT president and other union members to celebrate that big endorsement. And he spoke about attending New York City schools and the importance of making this city affordable for families. The UFT has 200,000 members, and they represent some of the city's teachers and other educational professionals. And the UFT is the city's second largest union. Before this, the union did not endorse any candidate for the primary. But last night, the union's delegate assembly voted to endorse Mamdani.
Falling in line. If anything, I actually think that this is bigger. Having endorsements after you win the primary rather than before is a sign of the primary victory mattering. You know? Like, they're not just ideologically in line with you. They recognize your legitimacy and your power.
Moving forward, they say he's the best candidate in the race to push the union's agenda, including better pay for teachers and fighting President Trump's federal cuts. And Mamdani is currently up against current Mayor Eric Adams. And this morning, Mamdani responded to criticism Adams has brought up.
When I go around New York City, what I hear from New Yorkers is they can't afford their rent. They can't afford their Con Edison bill. They can't afford even their Metro card.
He's not wrong. Every time I watch one of those clickbait wasteland videos, they plays out exactly the same way every time. No matter what the person says they want or who they say they support, they're then asked, what are your top concerns? Oh, rent. Yeah, we want rent to go down. Yeah, we supported Cuomo. Now I think we'll vote for Adams. But yeah, basically the main thing that we've wanted is for rent to go down. Yeah, rent, grocery costs, and maybe like better funding for the MTA. Yeah, just stuff like that. So yeah, we're voting for Adams. Just every single time, man.
And so it makes sense that Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo and others would want to focus on anything but their record in delivering this unaffordable city. Because if I was Eric Adams, I would rather talk about SAT scores than the fact that he raised the rent by 9% over the first years of his mayoralty and increased that yet again.
Meanwhile, President Trump is continuing his attacks on Mamdani. He's threatened to take over New York City if Mamdani is elected mayor. Trump has called Mamdani a communist and says if he's elected to run the city, it'll never be the same. Mamdani's campaign responded with a statement reading in part, Donald Trump has once again chosen to treat democracy like a suggestion and insult more than 500,000 New Yorkers who voted for Zohran Mamdani's leadership and a city they can afford. Back out here live, President Trump has also threatened in recent days to arrest and deport Mamdani if he gets in the way of ICE operations in the city.
Of course, of course. Just keeping the stakes in mind. Just keeping the stakes in mind. Arresting and deporting Mamdani would be like a real red line breaking point, though. Or I guess I would have to hope that it would be. Citizens have been deported, you know, and so have legal immigrants. But the arrest and deportation of a mega popular political candidate on the eve of winning, or possibly right after winning, mayorship of the city's, the country's largest city, that would be, yeah, that's pretty much like an end of democracy line right there. If that happens, would it cause riots in NYC? Well, I'm kind of black-pilled right now, so at the moment my thought is like, no. Like, you'd see a lot of Twitter posting about it, but nothing would actually change. I hope that's not true, though. I don't know, I've been trying to read up on history, and it really does seem like the only things that make people riot are being hungry and being afraid personally. And that apart from that, people mostly just gripe about it. You know? Which is really unfortunate. Could they actually seriously arrest and deport Mamdani? They can do whatever they want. What if he just gets insanely outspent? I don't think that's going to make the difference. To be fair, this is NYC, not Kansas City. Sure, but when was the last time a protest did anything, you know? It's been a long time since the government was actually afraid of its citizens. Nearly a century, honestly. But we'll see how things go.